this lesson will cover how to understand the letter format, okay? Because for you to get a high score in the tax 1, you need to understand how the question is being framed. So in this lesson, I'm going to cover just the basic information that you need to know, okay? So we will revisit the key information when it comes to the writing tax 1. We also look again at formal and informal writing, and we'll look at it with examples, okay? So we also check the topics. I think we said it in our first lesson, but we'll look at it again, the 7 question types, and also we will also try to revisit the assessment and criteria again when it comes to the writing tax 1, and then we will look at the letter structure and also some of the sample questions in it. So let's go on to the first one. As we stated in our first lesson, as a way of recap, I would let you understand it again. When it comes to the writing tax 1 for the general test, which is the letter, you need to know that the examiner expects you to write 150 words in your letter. It should be 150 words or more, okay? Don't write too much. But at least 150 words. You should be able to cross the 150 words, and any other number that you write up to is okay. Okay, and on the test day, they expect you to also use at most 20 minutes to plan and write your essay. Don't spend too much time on the writing tax 1, because the writing tax 1 contributes half as many marks of your writing of your score as the tax 2. That means that if they are calculating the writing tax 1 to the writing tax 2, if the max is 100%, which is what you'll be getting, the writing tax 1 forms just 33%. Okay, it forms 33% of that total score, and then the writing tax 2 is marked over 66%, or let me say 67% of the total score. Okay, so you'll be getting 33%. The writing tax 1 will be marked over 33%, while the writing tax 2 will be marked over 37% approximately. So you have to note that this particular letter has a small part to play when it comes to the total writing score, but you should not overlook it, because even if you get the whole of the 67% for the writing tax 2, it will not get you the bound score that you need. So you still need this one, which is the writing tax 1, to get to the bound score that you are looking out for. So don't just overlook it when it comes to the letter format. Now, in the letter, in each of the letters that you get, you might write it in 2 different tones. Okay, you might get one of the 2 tones that are very important here when it comes to the writing tax 1. So you should look at who you are going to write to. Okay, that is the most important thing when it comes to the writing format. Who am I writing to? So the people you are writing to will determine how you are going to write it, and that has been divided into 2 formats. Okay, first of all, if you are writing to somebody that you don't know, or you don't actually know very well, then your letter should be formal. Take note, if you are writing to someone that you don't know or you don't know very well, then your write-up should be formal. But if you are writing to a friend or a close family member, we take it as someone that you know very well, that you have a very close relationship with. So a friend or a close family member, it can be an uncle, a grandmother, a mother, father. So far as the person is a family member, we take it as somebody who is close. Right, take note of it, close. So it means that you know the person very well, and the person is a relative, so you treat that as an informal letter. Okay, So for you not to forget about this, think about it this way. If you get a question and it includes the word friend, that you are writing to a friend, then that you should use an informal language. But if the question does not include the word friend, then you should use a formal language. I believe this is very clear for you to understand. So as stated, if you are writing to a family member, that should also be treated as an informal letter, and you should write it in an informal tone. Let's look at some of the examples of a formal or informal letter. This is an example of an informal letter. Let's read. Your friend has written a letter to you asking for advice for his or her parents who will visit your area. Write a letter to your friend. In your letter, you should suggest the places they can visit, recommend a place where they can stay, and offer to do something with them. So, since you are writing to your friend, since you are writing to your friend, this letter is an informal letter, and therefore you should write it in an informal tone. Let's look at the second example. Your company is going to give a special training course for staff. Your manager has asked you to find out if the local conference center has the right facilities to hold this course. Write a letter to the manager of the conference center. In the letter, give details about the course. Describe what equipment you will need for the course. Ask some further questions about the facilities at the conference center. So this letter is a formal letter because you are writing to a manager. All right, you are writing to the manager, and that person is someone you don't know, and the question didn't state that you are writing to a friend. So it is a formal letter. You will get some sample questions, and also you try your hands on them. You can also look at some of the questions and also try your hands on them and identify whether they are formal or informal. Try to keep your letters in two tones, either formal or informal. Sometimes someone can get a question and ask that, how do I put it? Because the person is my neighbor. Okay, if you get a question where it states that it's your neighbor, assume that you don't know the person, okay, because you don't know the person very well, okay, because the person might be a next door neighbor, but you don't know him or her very well. So since he's your neighbor, treat it as a formal letter. Take note of that. If it's to a neighbor, treat it as a formal letter. I would like you to follow the general rule. Okay, formal letters are to people you don't know, and informal letters are to friends or family members. That is all. So if the letter doesn't state that it's to a friend or a close relative, then write it as a formal letter. If the letter does not state that you are writing to a friend or close relative, then write it in a formal tone. All right, let's revisit the question types or the letter topics that we have stated already, but let's revisit them. On the day of your exam, you will get one of these question types, and it has been explained to you, so you know that there are 7 question types, or there are 7 topics that you might get one of them on the day of your exam. So we have a letter of request, a letter of complaint, a letter of apology, a letter of explanation, a letter for application or resignation, a letter for an invitation, and a letter to make an arrangement. We also learned that there are 4 criteria that you are marked on, and they are the task achievement. That is where your examiner will be assessing whether you were able to respond appropriately to the task that was given to you. And also you also be checked on your coherence and cohesion, where they will check the way you present your letter, whether it was done properly. And the third part is your vocabulary, where they will assess whether you have the ability to use different words in same context, or you have wide range of vocabulary where you use them appropriately. And the last one is your grammatical range and accuracy, where they will also check your grammar and how well you use them correctly, and different grammar forms when it comes to a particular test. You will be given one full lesson on this, where we will go into detail on how to understand the tax 1 marking criteria. Now, when it comes to the letter format, or when it comes to the question that you will be getting, there is a way they frame the question. There is a format for the question. I want us to look at it. Let's look at a sample letter, then I'll use that one to show you how it's being framed. Now, this question states that you are going to attend a 6-week training course at the Trinity College, Bristol. You need somewhere to live while you are there. So write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college, and in the letter, explain your situation, describe the accommodation you require, and say when you will need it. You can see that in each of the paragraphs, in each of the parts of the question, I have used a color code to differentiate that, right? If you look at the blue part, it shows that it's just a general information they're giving to you, and it shows the topic of the question. All right, so you have this one telling you that you're going to have a 6-week training course and everything. So this part is quite different, showing you that this is the topic of the letter. When you look at the red part, it tells you to write a letter to the accommodation officer. All right, so this second part of the question will always hold who you are going to write the question to. And the green side is the place that holds the bullet points. It is mostly 3 bullet points, okay, and it tells you what you need to do. So these are the instructions of what you need to cover in your letter. So the letter format is the same for every type of letter that you get. The way they frame the question, the sample question, or the way they frame the question itself is the same for every type of question that you will get. You have the first part, which is the topic, telling you what the letter is about. The second part will always be the person you're going to write to, and the third part shows what you should write about. So when it comes to the structure of the question, you have 3 parts. We have a part 1, which is the topic, part 2, which is the person you're going to write to, and the third part, which is what you should write about, and it's always listed in 3 bullet points. All right, with that said, we've been able to get how the letter is being structured. So when you are giving such kind of letters, let's look at it, and then we look at how to structure the letter when we are writing. Now, before you get overwhelmed with the structure of how you're going to write the essay, I want you to keep it simple. Just remind yourself of how you are writing essays in your junior high schools and senior high schools. Okay, for instance, let's say that you have been given this question, which states that you are going to have a 6-week training course in a particular place, which is the Trinity College, and you want a place to stay, right? So you are writing a letter to the accommodation officer at the place, right? And then you want to tell the person these things. Okay, so the green ones are what you want to tell the person. You want to explain your situation to the person. you want to describe the accommodation that you want, and then you want to also tell the person when you will need that particular accommodation. So let's take it simply. For instance, it's not an exam, it's your daily thing that you are doing. So you want to write this letter. How will you go about it? All right. So I believe the first thing that you do is that you want to you would try to address the accommodation officer. So in our normal day-to-day write-up, since we are going to write to an accommodation officer whom we think is he hold an office, okay, so we don't know the person, so we treat this particular letter as a formal letter. So if it's a formal letter that we are actually writing, then let me try to put this one away so that you don't get confused. So if it's a formal letter that we are writing, I believe you write something like an address for yourself, right? So you write your own address. So let me put this address somewhere here. So you write your address here. You write your personal address here, and then when you are done, you will write the accommodations officer's address here, right? So you write the accommodation officer's address here. All right, so after you are done with the accommodation officer's address with your date and everything, then you try to salute the accommodation officer. So you try to salute the officer by writing maybe DSL or madam. I want us to remind ourselves of what we have been doing, okay, because that's the same thing you'll be doing here. So you write your address, you write the address of the officer, and then you write DSL or madam. And in normal circumstances, when you're writing a formal letter, you have to write a topic, isn't it? So you write a topic. So maybe application for accommodation or whatever topic that you want to write. So you have a topic and then you underline the topic, right? Then when you are done, you come to your first paragraph. Your first paragraph will be the introduction. So you introduce yourself, you tell the person what the reason you are actually writing the letter. So let me say you introduce yourself as my name is blah 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 blah. I want to maybe get a place in your college. I'm going for this particular thing. I want a place to stay, right? So you tell the person why you are writing the letter. The officer, the purpose of your writing. So after doing that, you move on to the next paragraph, right? So that will be your introduction. So after the introduction, which is you introduce yourself and tell the officer the purpose of your writing. So when you finish, then you come to the main body. So in the main body, you want to write these things. You want to tell the person these points. So your first one is to explain the first point, right? So you're going to explain your situation to the person, right? You explain your situation to the person. So you take the first bullet point and then you explain in one full paragraph, right? And then you move on to the next point. So in the next point, that will be your next paragraph. You describe your accommodation that you require. So you move on to the second point and then you explain. And then when you finish, you move on to the third point and then you explain, right? And when you are done, in formal letter, we call something conclusion, where you try to summarize everything together. I look forward to hearing from you soon, something like that. You subscribe, we call it subscription, right? So you sign off. In this lessons, I'll be using the word sign off instead of subscription, so take note of that. So you subscribe, right? So the subscription will be maybe yours faithfully, yours sincerely, then you sign and then you write your full name. That is for formal letters. So you write your full name. Okay, so these are the things that we have been doing in our day-to-day work everywhere that we go, in junior high school and senior high school, and it is not different from what you will be doing here, but there will be some few differences or some things that you will not need. The first thing that you don't need is that you will not need an address. So there will be no address for the letter. So cancel the address. So there won't be any address for you here. So we take off the addresses. Okay, okay, and there won't be any topic, so you don't have to write any topic there. And when you finish in the introductory part, yes, you don't need to tell, you don't need to introduce yourself, but you need to state the purpose of the writing. So you won't be able to introduce yourself here, but you state the purpose of the writing. So that is what you need. So after saluting the person, the next thing you do is that you state the purpose of your writing. Okay, and when you are done, it flows. So all of these will be there. You need to talk about the first point that they have asked you to do. So the first point, you need to explain it in another paragraph. You explain the second point in another paragraph. You explain the third point in another paragraph. Then you come to the subscription. So you sign off by writing either yours sincerely, yours faithfully, depending on who you are writing to and depending on the type of letter. So if you're having a formal letter, you might write yours sincerely, yours faithfully, kind regards, depending on the format, and we will go through all that. You don't have to sign. Okay, so don't be any signature there. So you won't have to sign. And you might write your full name or first name depending on the type of essay that you'll be writing. So it tells you that they have narrowed things down to the main things that you need. You write your salutation, dear sir or madam, or you might write the person name depending on the letter. We will go through all that. And then the second thing you do is that you state the purpose of your writing. That will be in a full paragraph. And then you answer the first point, or you write about the first point, you write about the second point, you write about the third point in different paragraphs. Then you subscribe or you sign off. Okay. So this will be the format of your writing. This is how you're going to frame your write-up. So your letter structure will look like this. You salute the person, then your first paragraph, you write the purpose of why you are writing. In the second paragraph, you write about the first bullet point, and that will be what they will be asking you to do, the first thing they'll be asking you to do. And in this question type, it's about explaining your situation, so you just write the purpose. In the second paragraph, you write about in the third paragraph, you write about the second bullet point, and then the fourth paragraph, you write about the third bullet point. Then you sign off or subscribe. So this will be how your letter format will look like. Okay, now that we've gone through the most important parts of the lesson, you are now building yourself. Okay, so we're going through other lessons to help you develop very good grounds before you go and write. Thank you, and we'll meet in our next lesson.